At first, I wasn't going to share this because I thought it was a form of complaining. And no one wants to hear anything about complaining. There's a lot of that going around in this world. But these are real life situations that I personally been going through, that we all go through. And I think many of us can relate to. So, in this video, I wanted to share a little bit about the behind the scenes of my life in a way, something that I don't always share. You usually see a lot of the breathwork content that I'm putting out there. But this is going to be a little bit different because I want to share a little bit about the spiritual awakening journey that I've been on, the healing journey that I've been on, and how it's been impacting me, and what I've been learning, how I've been coping from it, and the overall impact that it's had on my life, specifically in the last 3 years. But what has been going on in the last few months has been pretty intense. And life has been incredibly challenging. Over the last few months, I've been tested in what feels like every area of my life. And what I can categorize it as is another emotional crisis, similar to a dark night of the soul, but it wasn't as intense. I didn't feel hopeless. I didn't feel lack of motivation, which you usually feel during a dark night of the soul. This time around, I felt the full spectrum of emotions, specifically anger, grief, despair at times. And what made it even more challenging is navigating these emotions with two kids under two as a new dad, as a parent. We live in New York, so it's been a pretty brutal cold winter here. And winter makes it more intense because we're on top of each other. We're not outside as much as we'd like to. I work from home. My wife works from home. Two kids under two. We have a nanny that helps us. And everyone's inside. And at times it becomes like a pressure cooker. And when I went through this, it was really testing all the tools and tricks that I've learned on my journey so far. Breath work, energy healing, coaching, personal growth, to take all that out and to use it during this time. And even with that, even with all the tools, it was really challenging. I've been forced at times to pull back from my purpose, motivation, and sense of momentum that I had with my purpose, which is a whole other story for me, but had to pull back to really come home, ground in my family, and feel a lot more, which is always challenging, especially with two kids. All the different versions of me that I've been shedding. I was go, 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 go. And wanted to take on this next challenge, which was really building this business that I envisioned. I wanted to step out of my house, make more space for myself, and the universe had other plans. Everything that I had set up fell apart. And at that time, I learned that I wasn't ready to build. It was the time to be still, to feel, to ground, to be present. And I'm sure you could relate to this, especially if you're embracing your spiritual path, your spiritual journey. But what I have realized through this process for myself is you really don't need anything else. You really don't need courses or the retreats, the ceremonies that people do. If you have a family or even a partner, marriage, it's all right in there. Everything you need to learn, everything you need to face, every shadow about yourself gets brought into the light over and over again. They will force you to grow, force you to mature, play on your edge, adapt. Anything you're here to learn pretty much is within your family or your partner. And for me, I realized that it's just been a really big purification process. One that I need to accept, one that I need to surrender even more, and just continue to let go. Let go of control, let go of what's unfolding, which is a challenge in itself. What has happened the last few months for me personally, by the end I was just like laughing because it was like so much, between sleep deprivation, things breaking and falling apart in my house, being on top of each other, not being able to cultivate any work or time or space for myself, holiday expectations, family deaths and sicknesses, and a burden of overwhelming responsibilities, losing my outlet of self-expression, not having a steady income, and carrying this all on my shoulders. And I think you can relate to this. All while being a dad, a husband, all while trying to figure myself out, figure out my identity in this world, navigating sensory health challenges as a HSP and empath. That's been a journey in itself. And it's a lot to carry. I know many of you are going through similar things, maybe even worse. And I feel for you. When I started this journey, Like, yeah, I'm on a spiritual path, spiritual journey. Things are going smoothly. And then, bam, bam, bam. Things just start falling apart. And you're hit and you're challenged and you're poked and you're prodded from every direction, every person. And what I'm learning is being able to navigate these emotions, these tides, these waves that we're hit with, and to stay afloat, to just keep going. And I'd say what's been really challenging, probably one of the hardest, is not feeling understood. Not feeling understood by family, loved ones, especially if you are on a spiritual awakening, or if you're pursuing, your own path in some form. You could talk to and share with your family what you're going through. Read this, watch this, help explain something, help them maybe relate to something that you're going through. They still won't get it. They still don't get it. And it's frustrating. But why should they? They haven't went through it. They haven't experienced it. And it's isolating. Not having anyone to share your experience with. I mean, sure, you can get a therapist, a coach. And that may help you. I've had many of those through this process. But sometimes it doesn't take away, what you feel. The frustration, the pain. Personally, I felt, and I'm sure you could relate to this, I feel like a burden at times because of the health and sensitivity challenges that I've been navigating over the last 3 years. I've had to rearrange my entire life drastically, not because I wanted to, but because it just unfolded that way. Up until 3 years ago, I didn't even know I was an HSP. And when I discovered it during my spiritual awakening, I ran from it. I'm like, no way. I used to go out clubbing, I used to go into big crowds, but this whole process has been a de-shedding, a de-armoring of everything that I've accumulated to hide this part of myself. I went from feeling nothing because I suppressed a lot of my emotions throughout my whole life. I didn't really know that they were important or to be valued. It wasn't practiced as importance in my upbringing. But now I feel everything. So it's been a lot of work to navigate this switch. And even though I've had all these challenges, there's a big realization that I had through it, that with family life and challenges and being stuck on top of each other in the winter, feeling like I'm in a straitjacket at times, or feeling like I'm going up the mountain 10 feet and then getting pulled back 12 feet, or even just being suffocated with responsibilities, not having time for myself for as much as I used to. It's actually a huge arena for spiritual growth and an eye-opening experience to see what character building flaws, not flaws, but more of like things I need to work on, be able to see, where the holes are in my character that I need to work on. The great masters, like some of them, like Master Choa Koksui, Paramahansa Yogananda, talk about how a family life tests you, but it's an opportunity to really cultivate and build character for yourself. It's one of the fastest ways to mature and spiritually grow and develop. And at first it didn't look like I was moving because I was frustrated. I'm like, oh, I'm not growing in these areas, or, with my career. What I'm learning from these great masters is a lot of the stuff that we care about, material world, doesn't matter. Spiritual growth is the most important thing in this lifetime, because it's the only thing that we take with us to our next reincarnation. So that was a really big eye-opening realization I had, knowing that I'm doing this work. It's challenging. It's beating the shit out of me. But through all this so far, I've learned a lot about patience. I've learned more about discipline, being more adaptive, expressing myself in more challenging arenas in my personal life. And the biggest ones is boundaries. And because there was so many issues more recently, one after the other, I was just like, oh my God, like it was comical by the end of it. I didn't really see it like this. It's like, wow, I'm in a training ground for growth, spiritual growth. And since it's been within my family, within my home, the root chakra resembles your home, your family life. It's the foundational piece of your energy. It's been forcing me to face a lot of these fears, a lot of my shadows in this space. But what it's doing, it's building a root. It's building that foundation that I never really had, the strong spine that extends to every center within me. Was I perfect? Not at all. At times it was like scary. It was like, okay, this is where we're at. But I also learned not to judge it or break down and dissect everything. Sometimes I just had to accept it because it was so much. I also realized that feeling misunderstood, which was a big challenge throughout this that's common. It's common for HSPs, it's common for empaths, anyone forging their own path. And I felt this my whole life. But it was another thing that I've masked with trying to get into different friend groups, doing things to fit in. And even though that I still experience it, it doesn't make it any easier. But this time around, I'm learning to accept it more and just accept this is who I am. You know, I don't need to constantly explain to myself. And again, I was reminded about the power of self-expression and creativity and how important boundaries are. You know, being able to create music, having time alone. I lost that during this. There was only small windows of time that I had, and I had to be really intentional. I had to stop doing a lot of other things that I enjoyed doing to really focus on what was really important in the moment. And this is where a lot of emotions came through for me. And it was challenging to navigate these emotions because what I discovered is there was a lot of anger coming up, and anger is a protective mask for grief. So the grief really wanted to come through and express these different parts of myself that I was shedding. And what I really needed was more space, time outside to let things move. So now I'm really learning to embrace these different versions of me, because on this journey, I'm discovering a lot of different versions. Sometimes it's tough to keep up with, who should I be? How should I show up? And then expressing that to people that you know and loved ones. You're constantly changing, constantly evolving. It's happening so fast that no wonder why it's tough. No wonder why you feel misunderstood. But most importantly, for me, one of the biggest challenges that I've been, fighting with the last 3 years after my spiritual awakening is like how sensitive I've been. That I feel deeply, that I'm sensitive, I'm passionate, I'm just a deep person. And it feels really good to accept this part of myself. And it didn't come easy. It actually took me reaching out for help for someone. And one of the things she pointed out was through all the tools, especially the energy healing work that you've done, you're coming from a place of fixing yourself, trying to heal sensitivity. And we can't heal sensitivity because HSP sensitivity is a trait, personality trait. And she shared that there's nothing wrong with you. And I think a lot of us can relate to this with a lot of things that we're going through. Maybe the thing that we're trying to fix or heal, there's nothing to heal or fix. It's just a part of us that we need to accept. So I'm practicing now to be more open, be more vulnerable. And it's not an easy path, especially for me. Someone that suppressed all his emotions, someone that always played the stoic, I have life all figured out look. So this is also teaching me to accept where I am. I can't control everything. We can't control anything. Life's just gonna happen. And it's teaching me to be okay with that, okay with the chaos, to find calm in it and where I'm at. So through all this, I've been using a lot of the tools that I've gathered throughout my journey to help me. Breath work, energy healing, anything personal growth, as I mentioned to before. And a lot of the pranic healing work that I've learned from Master Choa Kaksui has been instrumental to get me through this. But when I met with the lady who's been helping me, she taught me how to connect to my intuition. And I'd say that has been a really big help, because a lot of the things that I've been seeking is outside of myself. And what's been missing is connecting with inside of myself. So I've started a small little practice where I just get into a little bit of a meditative state and start connecting to my intuition, asking it questions, challenges that I'm going through, things that I need answers with, and just listen to see what comes through. And it's been really profound, because it's through all this, I realized a lot of the purging and purification that's been going on with me has allowed me to listen to this inner voice within me even more. It's been a lot more clear. So it's been more powerful for me to almost have like a internal buddy that I'm talking to as another GPS directing me and guiding me on my journey. And this has shown some really great light for me. And I wanted to share it with you, because if you're going through this or going through something, connecting to yourself internally is going to be the best piece of advice that you're going to get. Starting to trust yourself more. And that's been a challenge for me throughout most of my life. And I just want to share that if you're going through something like this, or going through something far worse, that you got this. That no problem is permanent. That our purpose in this life is to really grow and evolve. So if you take what you're going through and flip it into an opportunity of growth. All right, I'm going through this. How have I grown through this challenge? It really shifts perspective for you in an even more powerful way. Because as I mentioned earlier, these challenges, these lessons we signed up for them before we came here. This is what our soul was here to learn. So the more that you can embrace these challenges, these lessons, the more that you can not see everything as a victim, and more as a creator, someone that's, moving along the flow of life. And it's been a challenging seesaw match for me. But yeah, it's finding the balance. finding the balance that works for you so that you can take all your growth from this lifetime and bring it with you to the next. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, whenever you're watching this. Much love.